All right, so good evening, everybody. My name is Shalain Garcia. I am a graduate of Albany. I graduated in 2007 with my bachelor's degree in psychology, and I also graduated in 2009 with my master's degree in criminal justice. And so today I wanted to take a little bit of time to tell you a little bit about myself and about my hard work in discovering my purpose. Um, so presently, I work for the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services in the Office of Youth Justice, where I work in the juvenile justice system, so from prevention to reentry along that continuum. And three of the areas that fall kind of under my purview or that I work on include reducing racial and ethnic disparities in the juvenile justice system. Because we know based upon 2017 data that Black youth, despite representing roughly 11% of the overall population, they represent about 55% of detention admissions and 38% of juveniles under probation supervision. So these disparities are long-standing and they're continuing. And all COVID-19 has done is highlight these disparities even more. And so that is something that I'm passionate about, is working to reduce those racial and ethnic disparities. One of the other areas that I'm passionate about career-wise is girls' justice, with a specific focus on girls of color. And so what we know based upon a 2019 study that was released by the Office of Juvenile Justice, Delinquency, and Prevention is that in the juvenile justice system, 54% of cases involving girls involve girls of color. And of those cases involving Black girls, they were 3 times more likely to be referred to court as opposed to being handled through a diversion or adjustment process. Now, what I mean by diversion or adjustment really is not that formal case processing. It's really that opportunity for a youth to go and deal with a probation department, for example, how they do it in New York, and really get some services in hope of not actually putting them through the whole system and giving them a juvenile record. The other thing that we know about girls in the justice system is that they are twice as likely as boys to report having experienced 5 or more abuses or traumas. So a lot of the girls that we see in the system really have deep-seated trauma issues and have experiences deep-seated abuses. And so one of the things that we work on is really to highlight this and to make people understand that it is important that you don't just look at the offense, but you dig a little bit deeper and figure out the why. So trauma-informed care really is all about the not why did you do this? It's really what happened to you. And so moving into that realm, another area that I work on is trauma resiliency and healing with an equity lens. Now, I say with an equity lens because it's really important to me, as I mentioned before, and we're working on racial and ethnic disparities, that whatever we do is with an equity lens, meaning that it is culturally sensitive and culturally competent. And so we know that trauma disproportionately affects Black and brown people, especially when you consider historical and generational trauma, which continues to rear its ugly head, right? Because everything now is about systemic racism, etc. So the care and the policies and procedures that must be executed with a cultural and equity lens need to be executed that way in order to be impactful and really reach the people and really do some healing with them. Because we know healing really is bigger than the individual. We have to begin to learn how to heal systems and heal communities as well. And so that is just a little bit about the work that I do. Some of the work groups and committees that I work with are the New York State Trauma Informed Care Collaborative, where I serve as the co-chair of the Cultural Competency Work Group. The New York State Trauma Informed Care Network, where I work on the Diversity and Inclusion Work Group. The New York State Racial and Ethnic Disparities Advisory Group, so that's the juvenile justice portion of it, where we are working diligently really to reduce the racial and ethnic disparities along the continuum of the juvenile justice system. The New York State Education Department's Girls of Color Work Group, and so really what that particular work group is focused on right now is the Crown Act, which was passed in 2019, and developing policies, procedures, guidance for schools so that they can lessen the discrimination on girls of color based upon hairstyles and their choices with hair, whether it's hair color, braids like you see here today, or anything of that nature. Another one that I serve on is the New York State Black Youth Suicide Prevention Work Group. We know that increasingly suicide is becoming more prevalent for Black youth, especially young Black males. And another one that it falls under the purview of my work is the Partnership for the Youth Justice, which is a partnership with DCJS, which is the agency that I work for, the Office of Child and Family Services, the Unified Court System, Office of Mental Health, among others. And there I co-chair the Gender Responsiveness Work Group. So all of the things that I really talked to you about just now really has to do with my passion and purpose to see the system become equitable, and also to make sure that a youth that does pass through the system is better off, and they don't follow the career or the statistics that would tell them that they would more likely be an adult in the system if they continued in the juvenile justice system. We know that if you are in the juvenile justice system, you're more prone to become an adult in the adult system. And so why do I do this work, right? This is my heart work. And so because I realize that change starts at the bottom, change at the bottom starts with change at the top. I spent almost 5 years as a probation officer, and the very things that I am working to change is something that I saw in practice on a daily basis. So for me, kind of shifting to the place where I am now, where I'm working more closely with policy and procedure, really was my desire to career change in order to affect change, and it be the next step to do that. Because we know that on the ground level, they follow the policy and procedures that are given from them from the top down. And so the other thing, and I have to be 100% honest about this work, is that quite frankly, it's time to stop looking at youth, especially Black and brown youth, as problems instead of possibilities and potential. And I needed a position, and I needed to position myself so that that sentiment could really resonate in every room that I walked into and every table that I sat at. It was really important to me because a lot of times Black bodies, and we know that from what's going on in the world right now, are seen as disposable. And we know that for youth, it's no different. You know, there was in the 90s, there was this notion of the super predator, that every Black youth that you came across was going to do something violent to you. And so those are deep-seated things that are still continuing to plague our society and our systems. And it's time to change that. So instead of looking at youth as the problem, it's time to view them as the potential and the possibilities. So again, that's a little bit about what I do professionally. And I want to switch gears a little bit to really talk about what I wanted to convey to you all this evening, which is purpose. And it took me a while to find out what my purpose was, but my time as a student and professional at Albany really helped me begin that path. Because I spent, my educational time at Albany, but after that, I transitioned into working as a professional for residential life. And so I ran a building that had about 450 students that I had to know, or that I took the time to really know on a first name basis. And I kept my door open so that they really could come and have a place where they can just unload whatever it is that they wanted to do. And in that, I discovered my love for mentoring, because a lot of these youth really came not having any idea of what they wanted to do, and they really just needed someone that can care. And because I lived with them, I worked with them, everywhere I went, they were, I took it upon myself to really begin to form these mentoring relationships with these youth and young adults, even though I was a young adult myself. And so I've always been told that I really am wise for my years. And, in that particular situation, that rang true, because a lot of the youth and the young adults that I was working with on the campus were not much younger than me. But they always looked to me as sort of that motherly figure. And so, that kind of made my heart smile. So when we talk about purpose, it's really those different things that make your heart smile, that you can identify as your heart work. The things that really give you that tangible feeling that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I have a friend who really is into writing and writing screenplays and things of that nature. And for her, purpose is tangible because she feels it. Every time she writes a screenplay, she writes a line, it could be something small, she literally gets chills and she just smiles. And for her, walking in that purpose is a very tangible thing. And so it helped me really discover that was my that was my purpose, to build up young people and to affect change in systems that involve young people. So when we're talking about purpose, right, purpose is the reason that something is done or created, or for which something, and I like to add someone, exists. And so what I discovered during this pandemic, I was moving in purpose in my career, but I wasn't moving in purpose in my personal life. This pandemic really has forced me to slow down and pay attention to me. It was something that I had neglected for a long time. It's something that I write about in the book that I'll share with you in a few moments, is that I really was neglecting the love of myself. And in order for me to really get to purpose and really operate in purpose, I had to slow down and really do me for a second, right? We're people that are pulled in so many different directions, whether we have families, whether we're have younger siblings, whatever. Somebody always wants something from us. And so there had to be a time where I was able to really do some reflection and some thinking about what I really wanted to do in this world and where I wanted to leave my mark. And the forced sit down, as I call it, of the pandemic really allowed me to do that. And so what I want you to know is that you can't discover purpose ignoring yourself. It's not possible. Because in order to discover that purpose, you really have to be in tune with what makes your heart smile, what gives you life every day, right? Not what sucks the life out of you, but what gives you life every day. And so during this pandemic, I released 2 books. One is called Purposefully Single, Discovering You Before Desiring Us. And there's a companion book to that has positive affirmations, which is what I use really to edify myself and to really get back in tune with who I am and what I believed and what my value systems were and what my purpose was. And so I also started a personal website, that I have a blog. Now, I will admit I don't blog as much as I used to blog, but it's there. So it's one of the things that I definitely have to get back to for sure. Another thing that I started during this pandemic was a inspirational/motivational Instagram page that's called From Lainey with Love. So make sure you go and follow that. I also jumped into the podcast arena with a dear friend of mine, Miss Shalain Williams, who is the co-host with me of the podcast From Us with Love. And some of you may know Deshaya, as she was a track and field coach at Albany for a number of years. And so on top of that, part of my brand includes what I call vision running, right? And so it's helping people set a vision and navigate the steps to achieve it. And it's doing some of that grunt work to do that, right? So it's a lot of people fail to go after their purpose and write the vision because they don't want to do the work behind it. And that's just the case. And a lot of people sing their shoulda, coulda, wouldas because they just didn't want to do the work. And so here I am trying to encourage people to say, no, go after that thing. Don't go along with life with regret and seeing other people do what they desire to do and then sit there and hum and ha and ooh and ah when you can very well be walking in your purpose, but you're deciding not to do the work. And so what I do is encourage people really to do things like create your business idea. You know, I can help you identify vendors, connecting with effective branding and marketing, etc. All of that was something that I launched in the midst of this pandemic. And people laugh, my friends laugh at me all the time because they say, why are you so busy during the pandemic? I said, because I had no choice. Purpose literally was knocking on my door and it was time for me to really answer. And so I had to slow down because none of this stuff would have been birthed if I would have just let my mind continue to deter me. So it allowed me to really effectively get in tune with my heart and what I really wanted to do in this life. And so I had to slow down enough to revisit what I knew my purpose was, realign myself to make sure that that was actually my purpose and my heart work, and also readjust my thinking and actions to make sure that I was headed in the right direction. Realign, adjust, readjust, and really just slow down. Slow down, revisit. A lot of times things can change, and what you love to do can change over time, and that's fine as long as it's continuing to make your heart smile. And at the end of the day, you know that you are doing what you want to do, and it's serving a purpose for you and hopefully others. And so what I wanted to do is give you 6 steps or 6 things to consider that can help you discover your purpose. And these are in no particular order. These are just some things that really, really helped me. And so one of the things that I am a believer of, like, if you know me, you know I have journals, I have books, I have boards, I have whiteboards, all in my bedroom. So the first thing is write the vision and make it plain. It needs to be something that's in your face. Even if you just put it in your phone and you revisit it, when you're walking in purpose, you have a vision, and it's important to constantly revisit your vision to make sure that you are moving in the right direction. The other thing that was important for me was my willingness to learn. There's a lot of things that I did not know about being a writer, about Instagram, about all of these platforms, about building a website, but I had to be willing to learn in order to make myself better. And it was necessary for me to share my purpose with the world, to have these things in place. It also was necessary for me to do the research, right? I knew I wanted to help people and affect change. How is that done? So it was reading, different books about, and for my particular book that I wrote, relationships and how to really maximize your self-love and your self-care. And so the other thing, one of the other things that was big for me was do it afraid. Do it afraid, and don't be afraid to fail. I was nervous, about writing a book because there's a level of vulnerability that I expressed in the book that I felt that would make people look at me a different way. And so doing this live right now, scared. Live is not something that I'm used to. If you would have met me back in my college days, I ran from a camera. That's just not my thing. But I had to do it afraid because I felt like my purpose and my message was important enough for everybody to hear. Don't be afraid to fail. A lot of times people look at failure as the end point. I had to shift my thinking to understand that failure was the beginning. Failure was the beginning because it allowed me to look at the situation, readjust, and figure out what I need to do differently, or figure out if I need to continue to go down that route. I wouldn't have discovered that if I didn't fail. And so there are powerful, powerful lessons that failure can teach you, but you cannot be afraid to fail. The 4th thing is to use the power of words. Listen. What you say has a huge impact on your life. If you consistently confess negative, you will see negative. If you confess positive, you will see positive. And so the power of words is very undeniable. And so I had to really begin to speak what I wanted to see in my life. I wanted to be a writer and publish a book. So every day I want to be a writer and publish a book. I'm going to publish a book. I'm going to publish a book. It was what I needed to keep me focused on the end goal. So use the power of your words, and don't let your mind, deter you, put you in such deep self-doubt that you can't even speak the words out of your mouth. Even if you have a moment of doubt, speak your vision. Speak what you want to see happening in your life. And I guarantee you it will bring that doubt back and allow you to move forward. Find you a good mentor. One of the key things for me was really finding a mentor who I felt understood me in general. It doesn't have to necessarily be a mentor that's just about what you want to do, but just a mentor that really can guide you in life in general, because we all know life continues to happen. We could pursue our hard work, we can pursue our purpose, and we can get derailed because of life happening. And when life happens, we need that person to say, okay, have your moment, right? Have your moment, but don't stay there. You have a purpose to fulfill. And so that was super vital for me in discovering my purpose, is having a mentor and someone that really was in my ear telling me that no matter what, you can do it. This is what you are born to do. This is what your heart's desire, and you can really do it. And the last thing I want you to consider is the notion that I call deal, heal, move, right? And so a lot of times people don't follow their purpose because there's some unresolved things that they refuse to acknowledge, or there's some hurt, there's some doubt on the plates of others, portraying that onto you. And so what I really had to do was really deal with a lot of the self-doubt, but also doubt from others. I remember when I wanted to be a probation officer, I was dating a gentleman at the time, and he was like, you can't do that. You're never going to be a probation officer. It's not for you. You don't have the physical abilities and things of that nature. So it became my mission to, one, deal with that doubt, heal from my self-doubt, and then do the steps that I needed to do to make sure that I was successful. And I was. I became a probation officer, was very successful as a probation officer. And to this day, because of my success as a probation officer, I now train other probation officers. And so I think it's important that you acknowledge what could be holding you back from pursuing your purpose. You heal from that, right? Once you acknowledge it, you do the work to heal from it, right? Whether it's healing from self-doubt and doing positive affirmations to sort of dial back that self-doubt. Once you're able to heal, you can effectively move into purpose. It is so important. You know, one of the things that I said is that I never wanted to really, I'll just say it like this. I never wanted to die unfulfilled. And so what I wanted to do was make sure that I discovered my purpose early enough to have and spend enough time doing it. And so I really encourage you to really think about, you know, especially in this time, right? I really encourage you to think about all of the things that really make you feel good, right? Really, you know, I never wanted to spend my life in a job, in a career, or doing anything that didn't make me feel like it was worth it. And I'm notorious for, if something is not really speaking to my heart, I'm moving on. And so one of the things that I will say, I know that the freshmen are coming on campus and things of that nature. One of the things that I will say is, as a freshman, really try different things. Try different things and see what you love. And it's okay if you don't make up your mind just yet, but do it. Do it again. Do it afraid, right? And so I think that it's important to really take that time to explore everything that UAlbany has to offer, everything that the surrounding community has to offer. Make the connections. Talk to people. Don't be so much in your bubble that you miss a blessing that could be walking by you because you were scared to talk to a person. That was one of the things that I regretted as an undergrad, was not making those connections. I made them well after the fact, but I wish I made more connections while I was actually a student at UAlbany. And so that is what I have for you all today. I know my time was really short. I don't know that I have any questions. So far, I don't think I have any questions just yet or at all. But you can definitely reach out to me. My door is open. It's always been open. My website is just my name, ShalainGarcia.com. And on there, you can find out about what I'm doing, what I'm up to, a little bit more about me. You can discover my blog, my podcast. What else do I have on there? And some other things just about me. Definitely follow me on Instagram. You know, I pride myself on being able to really encourage people. Even no matter what I'm going through, it's important for me to encourage other people. And one of the things that I wanted people to get out of my books was to not make the same mistakes that I did in taking so long to really discover who I was and discover love for myself. And so I do see the question, how do you know that purpose is knocking at your door? For me, purpose, the feeling of purpose was very tangible. It was super tangible. It was doing something, trying different things. But when that feeling shifted to excitement every time that I was doing something, or when the thoughts and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and when everything and the ideas started flying around the thing, that's how I knew I was beginning to walk into that purpose. That's how it was with me for writing. I knew from a very young age that I loved to write. I didn't know that I would ever become a published author because, like I told you before, there were a lot of things that I was afraid to do. And so, but it kept knocking, right? Every time I turned around, I would speak to somebody and they would say, oh, you should write a book. Or, I would mentor somebody and say, you should put all this in a book. And then, I would talk to other people and say, man, you should write a book. And every time I turned around, it was, you should write a book. You should write a book. Sometimes purpose will literally beat you about the head until you pay attention. And again, it took this pandemic for me to really slow down and understand that purpose was knocking and it was time for me to pay attention and answer. Like I said before, you cannot discover your purpose unless you pay attention to yourself. Don't see any other questions, but I hope that answered your question. So yeah, I know my time with you all again was short. I do want to wrap up by just saying again, do it afraid. Go for it. Go for it. They always say, shoot for the stars. If you miss, you land amongst the clouds or something along those lines. Y'all know all them different sayings. But it's true. If you don't do it, you will never know whether or not it was for you or whether or not it was meant for you to be. And it was meant for you to do, be. You never know what impact you have on someone else's life until you really get out there and really do different things and really try different things. So do it afraid. Discover your purpose. The world needs you. The world needs you to discover your purpose. If all of us walked in our purpose, I feel like the world would be a greater place, because a lot of people's purpose really has to do with helping other people and being kind to one another. And that is definitely something that we need in this world right now. And so, again, make sure you check out my website, shalaingarcia.com. My books are available on Amazon. All the information you need is there on the website. I want to take a minute to really thank Albany, because Albany definitely shaped my purpose and my love for people. And that's my purpose, people. Changing systems that deal with people, particularly youth, but people is my purpose. And so Albany definitely shaped that for me, even as a student, on up to my professional life as a resident hall director before I left Albany to pursue my love for criminal justice. And so thank you to Albany. I will forever bleed purple and gold. Thank you to Arlene Alvarez Pena, who, put my name up for this opportunity. Thank you to the Albany Alumni Association for allowing me to sort of take over your live on this evening. Thank you for making it a seamless process. And I hope that everyone found something out of today's chat, because that's what I'll call it. It was a little bit of a chat. And again, you can always feel free to reach out to me if you need anything. And so with that, I wish everyone a good evening. Stay safe. And I wish you all nothing but success on your path to purpose. And I will see you all soon.